Sir.
Good afternoon. Who are participating? Good afternoon. Who are participating from various universities and institutions across the country. And also, I thank my colleague, Professor Chandramoli, who is the coordinator of this program, for having.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Please, good afternoon. Please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Good afternoon to one and all. Today, in fact, I have been given the responsibility to interact with you on a very important subject called right to environment and human rights, a constitution perspective. First of all, we should understand there are two important concepts here. One is concept of environment. The other one is concept of human rights. Let me start with the concept of human rights. What are these human rights? Whether these human rights are really given by the human beings or they are given by nature. If we look back to the philosophy of the human rights conception, you will find that the human rights are endowed by nature. It is not man-given human rights, but they are given by nature. And therefore, some of the rights which are given by nature to the mankind, they are called as natural rights. When we say that certain rights are endowed by nature, for example, right to life, right to marry, right to enjoy life, right to move, right to speak, right to live with human dignity. When all these rights are given by nature, we call it as a natural rights. A question arises, if they are called as a natural rights, how can these natural rights can be taken over by human beings or distorted by human beings? It is not possible to distort or taken away by human beings all these natural rights because they are endowed by nature. So therefore, for the first time in the Magna Carta of 1214 AD, all these natural rights which were being enjoyed by the human beings across the globe, they wanted to have these natural rights to be incorporated into a document, in a particular document or in a particular statute. Their main objective is once they are incorporated into a statute or a document, in case there is an infringement of these rights by any authority, by any individual, which can be questioned in the court of law or any judicial institution. In the absence of recognition of these natural rights in a document, a statutory document, it is very difficult to enjoy these rights, and also in case of infringement, it is very difficult to get back these rights. Therefore, for the first time in England, through Magna Carta, the various natural rights which were being enjoyed by different individuals, they were brought within the purview of a document. And the first time the document is what is called as Magna Carta. Magna Carta is the starting point where the natural rights are recognized in a document. And of course, after that, many Bill of Rights were enacted in England, in USA, even in France. Many Bill of Rights, including certain rights which are endowed by nature, were included within the Bill of Rights and got legal recognition or statutory recognition by way of incorporation of all these natural rights into a Bill of Rights. But the real beginning of the recognition of these natural rights as a constitutional rights started when these rights were incorporated into the Constitution of America. when the American Bill of Rights was enacted, many rights were recognized by the American Constitution. And American Constitution for the first time given a legal recognition to these natural rights. And later, the other constitutions also recognize these natural rights. Then once these rights are recognized by the Constitution, for the purpose of protection of the interest of human beings, for the purpose of protection of individuals across the globe, they were named as human rights. That means that these rights are given to the human beings. These rights are called as human rights because human beings are required to enjoy, required to protect themselves through these rights, their interest, and their protection. If that is the case, the next question which arises is, what are these human rights? Rights which are fundamentally and inalienably that are essential for the life as a human beings. Rights which are fundamental and inalienable. For example, right to life is an inalienable right. Right to live is an inalienable right. Right to speech is an inalienable right, indestructible right, which cannot be alienated or separated or segregated by any authority. If at all today, your fundamental rights or human rights, what we call as, are subjected to infringement, which can be questioned in the court of law. But this was not the situation before our human rights or natural rights. They were recognized by the statutes or by the Constitution. Therefore, rights that are inherent in our nature, without which we cannot live as human beings. That is exactly where we make a demarcation between the human beings and the animals. Human beings are enjoying certain rights for the purpose of living with human dignity. Therefore, human rights may be called in different names. They may be called as fundamental rights, they may be called as basic rights, or they may be called as natural rights. And human rights are not created by legislations. Please remember, human rights are not created by legislation, but human rights are endowed by nature, and later they were recognized by the statutes made by the human beings. And that is why they are called as statutory rights. When they are recognized under the Constitution, they were called as constitutional rights. When they were given a special importance and special significance in the Constitution, they are called as fundamental rights. So therefore, human rights, so human rights are not created by the legislation, but they cannot, and also they cannot be subjected to amendment also. Because why?
Hello, sir.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But your topic is human rights and environment. But your topic is diverted.
No. I'm discussing about the human rights now. Then I will take up the environment, and then I will compare this how environment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, totally diverted, Professor, sir.
Okay.
Environment and human rights and environment.
Yeah. Just wait. I'm discussing about human rights now. I'll come to the environment. How environment is also a human right, a part of human right. Okay. So once we recognize these natural rights are human rights and recognized as statutory rights, and later they were recognized as fundamental rights, they were also in fact an integral part of human beings. Now the question is how we can get into the importance of environment, how environment is also a human right. Look at the environment. Today, environment in fact has not been defined universally, but it has been explained by various environmentalists. Environment is one in which whatever is available surrounding us. It could be water, it could be air, it could be soil, or it could be anything which is an integral part of environment. So therefore, right to environment, it includes right to have certain environmental free, that is pollution free environment. There are many instances where the judiciary, Indian judiciary, has recognized that right to environment is not just only to live in an environment, but it also includes pollution-free environment. Pollution-free environment. Suppose there is a pollution in the environment. Suppose there is a pollution of water, pollution of air, pollution of soil, pollution of atmosphere. What kind of environment, right of environment we can enjoy? See, if an individual wants to live with human dignity, if an individual wants to live in the society, there must be a good environment. Environment, pollution-free environment is an integral part of human right. If an individual does not get or fails to get pollution-free environment, it is nothing but a violation of his human right. See, therefore, today, environment, right to environment has assumed a global significance. If you look at the way in which environment is being protected by various statutes. In India, we have various legislations. Environmental Protection Act 1986. Then we have Forest Act. Then we have Forest Conservation of Protection Act 1980. There are plethora of legislations we have. Even at the global level also, we have various international legislations and international conventions. For the first time, right to environment was felt by the people across the globe, and its importance was felt by various sovereign states was in the year 1972. The Stockholm Conference of 1972 is a monumental conference which for the first time discussed about the importance of environment in terms of its protection, conservation, and preservation for the sustainability of mankind. And of course, after the Stockholm Conference 1972, after Stockholm Conference 1972, subsequently 1992, Rio de Janeiro Declaration, in which the importance of the sustainable development was also in fact thought of. Sustainable development, that is, individuals shall not be, in fact, they must be allowed to enjoy and to destroy the natural resources, environmental resources. If the present generation is allowed to destroy the environmental resources by way of exhausting all the natural resources, it will be a threat to the next generation or the future generation. And that is why sustainable development principle was highlighted at the international level, both at the De Janeiro Convention 1992 as well as the Stockholm Conference of 1972. And of course, it is because of this importance of these international conventions, Indian Parliament has also in fact enacted certain legislations based upon these 1972 declarations made in the Stockholm Conference regarding the importance of environment. Why so much of importance of environment is given across the globe? both at the international level as well as the national level, because right to environment is also an integral part of human right. If the human beings are not able to get a good environment, a pollution-free environment, then they cannot enjoy certain rights as human beings. See, with the advent of globalization, with the advent of industrialization, with the advent of civilization, or with the growth and development of population, the swift growth of population, innumerable economic activities are taking place. Many industries have come into existence. Many products are being manufactured by way of industrialization, by way of development of transportation, by way of development of urbanization. Environment is getting deteriorated. Environmental pollution is taking place across the globe. This concept of environment is not confined only to locally. It is not a local problem which people are facing. It is a national problem and it is an international problem. Once the environment, in fact, is distorted, if the environment, in fact, is polluted, then we will have a transboundary pollution. Whenever the environment of one territory, in fact, is affected grossly, it will have a negative impact upon the territory of another state. That is what is called transboundary pollution. So therefore, there are plethora of judicial decisions given by the Indian judiciary, both Supreme Court of India as well as the high courts. Especially the MC Mehta's case. MC Mehta versus Union of India is a classic example where MC Mehta, in fact, fought throughout his life for the preservation, protection of environment as a human right. If the proper environment is not ensured, if the adequate environmental protection is not ensured to the human beings, I think human beings cannot live with human dignity. And therefore, the 42nd Amendment was also made to the Indian Constitution. When 42nd Amendment was made, certain provisions were included to the Article 48 and Article 51 of the Indian Constitution. If you look at Article 48 of the Indian Constitution, one of the directive principles of the state policy, which obligates the state authorities to protect, preserve, and conserve natural environment. It may include wildlife, it could include rivers, oceans, wildlife, birds, animals, and so on and so on. So therefore, for the first time, the Indian Parliament, by bringing an amendment to the Constitution of India, by virtue of Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, imposed obligation on the states. States shall have an obligation towards the environment. Likewise, the same amendment also, in fact, inserted a clause to Article 51 of the Indian Constitution, imposing obligation upon every citizen of this country. It is not only the state's obligation, but it is also the obligation of the citizens of this country to protect, to preserve, and to respect the environment, to respect the nature. Article 51 of the Indian Constitution, it obligates every citizen to respect the nature, to protect and preserve the nature, and to protect and preserve the environment. Why? Environment is an integral part of human right. Environment can also be considered as a human right, because in Subhash Kumar versus Union of India, the Supreme Court for the first time said, right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution which is guaranteed to all citizens and also non-citizens of this country, which includes pollution-free environment. A pollution-free environment is an integral part of right to life. Therefore, the Constitution of India has given innumerable rights within the parameter or within the ambit of the human rights. For example, we have a legislation called Environmental Protection Act 1986. Earlier to the Environmental Protection of 1986, we had Water Act, Air Act, which took responsibility to protect the water from pollution, which took protection from pollution from air, that is Air Act. See, all these legislations, in fact, they are focusing upon a particular area of the environment. Whenever the water is polluted, Water Act, in fact, takes care of the pollution of water. When air is polluted, when the atmosphere is polluted as a result of the emission of gaseous substances by the industries, by the industries and various factories, the Air Act, in fact, which regulates, which imposes restrictions upon the owners of the industries or the owners of the factories. Therefore, the Constitution of India is the law of this country. The Constitution of India is the basic law under which a plethora of legislations have been enacted by the Parliament. Among all those environmental legislations, the most important legislation which covers almost all the environmental problems, it could be pollution of air, it could be pollution of water, it could be pollution of noise, it could be pollution, it could be pollution of soil, it could be destruction of biodiversity, it could be destruction of ecology, or it could be destruction of a forest. For all environmental issues, one important legislation which was enacted by the Parliament was Environmental Protection Act 1986. Under this Environmental Protection Act of 1986, two important concepts were introduced. The first one is environmental impact assessment. Any industrialist or any individual wants to start an industry, before starting any manufacturing of any goods and services, establishing any industry, the proposals to start such an industry shall be subjected to environmental impact assessment. If the environmental impact assessment in which, if the report is negative, then the individuals will not be allowed to establish their industry because it will be damaging the environment. Once the environment is damaged, it is also damaging the human rights. What is that human rights? Human right is right to live in the society, right to live in the country, right to live with human dignity. See, therefore, environment is an integral part of human rights. And human rights and environment, in fact, they are intertwined. They go together. And therefore, once we say that environment, in fact, is an important aspect of human right, human rights should be protected. It is the duty of the state, it is the duty of the citizens of this country to protect not only environment, but also human rights. Why do we say that the environment is also a human right? Because human beings cannot live without having a good environment. Human beings cannot live in a polluted environment. So therefore, individuals must be given a pollution-free environment. Man should be able to get a pollution-free environment to live with human dignity. What is that life right to life given under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Perhaps you all know that the right to life, which is a very, very important fundamental right given to the citizens and non-citizens of this country, which goes along with various other rights. There are so many compendious rights covering the right to life. Right to life includes right to have good environment. Right to life as a human right, it includes right to have pollution-free environment. See, therefore, the right to environment and right to human rights, they are integral. They cannot be separated. See, therefore, for the first time, for example, in MC Mehta versus Union of India and Kamalnath versus Union of India. In Kamalnath versus Union of India, the importance of the environment as a human right was felt by the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court said in that case was, the Kamalnath, who was the then Central Minister of Environment and Forest, he constructed a group of motels called spa motels. By constructing the motels, a group of hotels, he diverted the river Bees and started discharging the hotel effluents directly into the river Bees, causing damage to the quality of the river. The matter was taken to the Supreme Court through a public interest litigation, saying that by polluting the river Bees as a result of the discharge of the hotel effluents, it is violating the human rights. Individuals are being affected because individuals are using the river water for their drinking purpose, using the river water for various other purposes, which they are being affected. Many people, in fact, after using the water, polluted water, they got infected with the diseases. And it was found on record when it was submitted before the Supreme Court that some of the people, they got dermatitis. They got infected with dermatitis, skin diseases. What the Supreme Court said was, this kind of discharge of the hotel effluents directly into the river, it causes environmental pollution. It damages the environment, it damages the quality of water. And the water which is being used by the people, they are also affected. And the right to life is also affected under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. See, that is how the Supreme Court tries to connect the right to environment and human rights. They go together. They cannot be separated. And that is why in tanneries case, where the production of tanneries in various industries and discharge of the industrial effluents directly into the river or directly into any water bodies will also be in fact affecting the quality of environment. At present, now we have been observing that as and when the development of urbanization, as and when the development of industrialization, now there is a large scale environmental pollution. Environmental issues are coming up. Many environmental problems are coming up today because of the innumerable industries are taking place. For example, cement industry, paper industry, garment industry. See, all these industries, in fact, they are discharging huge quantum of effluents directly into the water bodies. And as a result of which, there is a environmental pollution. And the Supreme Court of India has given a very strict guidelines to all the governments across the country, including the central government, to see that there must be establishment of treatment plant. Every industry, before the production starts, before the manufacturing process starts, they must establish or set up treatment plant. If the treatment plant is not established, then the industry will not be given permission to start their manufacturing process, because environment is more important. Environment has gained so much of importance, so much so that today, as a result of the environmental pollution, there is a large scale health problems are coming up. People are infected with various ailments. People are infected with the bronchitis. People are infected with cancer. People are infected with the lung problem as a result of the discharge of a huge smoke by the industries without erection of proper chimneys. So therefore, today we have a human right, that is right to life. Right to life includes right to live with human dignity. How to live with human dignity when the environment is not good? When large scale water pollution is there, when large scale air pollution is there, when the ecology is completely destroyed, when the biodiversity is completely affected, when the fauna and flora in fact is getting damaged as a result of the industrial effluents, industrial smoke. See, therefore, these are all the very perennial problems connected with the environment. But please remember, these environmental problems, they are not confined only to at the municipal level, at the local level, or at the state level, or at the national level. These problems, we find these problems across the globe also, across the globe. For example, even in America, even in England, and even in the developed countries where industrialization has taken place, where huge number of industries are manufacturing goods and services, with huge quantum of goods and services, there also we find large scale environmental pollution. But they have taken adequate measures, and their government are guided by the judiciary by way of laying down certain principles, laying down certain guidelines. But in India also, under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, our state can also lay down certain guidelines before providing permission for the commencement of any industries, because environment is a paramount importance. That is why today we consider environment is also a human right. Human beings cannot live just with freedom of speech and expression, or human beings' right to life cannot be a good life unless until they will have a good environment, or pollution-free environment. So therefore, environment is a very important concept, a very important component within the human rights. Therefore, we have to give importance to both. It is not something which is important, which is not unimportant. Both are important. If man wants to develop, if man wants to develop his personality, intellectual personality, this man wants to develop his intellectual personality, his human rights are to be ensured. Human rights are to be provided, and human rights are to be protected by the state authorities. And since environment concept is an integral part of human rights, environment is also to be protected vis-a-vis human rights. So therefore, when we discuss about this right to environment and human rights, we cannot discuss one independently with the other. Both are important. Both are equally important for the sustainability of mankind. When we talk about the sustainable development, as I told you, the conference of 1972, that is Stockholm Conference of 1972, De Janeiro Conference of 1992, these conferences, in fact, they insisted for the sustainable development principle. Every sovereign state, including every state, must follow the sustainable development principle. Why? Because no individual shall be allowed to exhaust and to utilize fully the environmental resources for the time being only, or for the present generation only. While utilizing the environmental resources by the present generation should also think about the importance, the future generation also, because future generation shall not be left without any environmental resources, because they too have a human right to live with human dignity. So they should also be respected. So therefore, environment vis-a-vis a human right has assumed a very greater significance, very greater importance today, in the especially in the 20th century and 21st century. And I'm sure that the Indian Constitution, the international conventions, they have also adequately taken care of the preservation and protection and conservation of environment, as well as the protection of the human rights. I think I have discussed a few important issues relating to right of environment and human rights. And if you have any questions on any of this, I think I would like to respond to your questions. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Sir,
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I am Dr. Sunil Bagade from Karnataka State Law University, sir.
Please.
Sir, I would like to know as regarding whether any international human rights convention incorporate right to environment as a part of human rights regime which they provide for.
Exactly. Yeah. Our Stockholm Conference of 1972.
Sir.
Stockholm Conference of 1972. In fact, our parliamentarians, in fact, they were so fascinated about the way in which the guidelines were laid down in the Stockholm Conference of 1972 for the conservation and protection of environment. And that is why the Environmental Protection Act 1986 was enacted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Tell me.
Sir, I'm Dr. Nagashesham from Government Law College, Kolar. Sir, with regard to this environment, what you told is, I strongly agree with you, sir, because the right to life includes the right to environment. So environment pollution with regard to water, air, whatever it may be. But we can say this water and also air, sir. So before that, the people can have the water directly from the wells and bore wells, isn't it, sir? Now, without the filters, we cannot take that water. So that is the one thing. Moreover, now anything is going to be invented in the country or anywhere across the globe, they should see that what are the consequences of that one. Now we are invented the plastic using. Now the people cannot survive with the plastic, and the government cannot prevent that one also. So in the product level, they have to prevent. That
is why I said. That's why I said there is one principle in the Environmental Protection Act 1986, that is the environmental impact assessment. If the project proposal is not subjected to environmental impact assessment,
yes,
then the project will not be accepted or given permission by the government to start with.
Sir, already we are having so many plastic industries already is established, sir. That is the thing.
Yeah,
but the people are suffering with regard, not only the human beings, even the animals also, they are suffering with regard to this plastic pollution. One more thing I want to tell you, sir, you have quoted that Kamalanathan case, where the person who is a minister, isn't it? If with the political influence, the people are establishing industries and they are not following the norms, then the public is suffering. So what type of the precautions will be taken by the government, how they can prevent, and they can prevent the human rights, sir?
You may be surprised to know that the Supreme Court, in fact, imposed a penalty of 10 lakhs rupees for Kamal Nath when he violated the environmental law by discharging the hotel effluents directly into the river B. 10 lakhs.
So
But the
that
amount is not the criteria. The criteria is at least the judiciary is taking care of, is conscious about the violation of the environment by the individuals.
So that whatever the penalty is imposed to the minister is nothing to him, sir. That is one thing.
No, that's what I said. Money is not.
How many cases the public is going, sir? How many people's case? I mean, how many these public interrogations are filing before the Supreme Court, sir? So many people are suffering. So what is my opinion is that when they are giving any permission or inventing any new thing, they should see the consequences. Then only they have to develop in the country. Otherwise, we cannot protect this environment and we cannot protect the human right of a human being. Is it, sir?
Provisions are very clear under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, but the problem is in practice, the provisions are not being strictly implemented. There is a need to implement. There is a strict implementation of the provisions of the Environmental Protection Act. Otherwise, what is the need of these legislations? If the legislative provisions are not properly implemented or properly imposed on the individuals, what is the need of having these legislations? See, where exactly the fault lies? The fault lies not with the violators. Fault lies with the implementers.
Fault lies with one thing, sir. One more thing. Change should come from the society also. Change should come from the society also.
Exactly. Every individual must be conscious, must be aware of the importance of environment as a human right. As a human right. See, without having a good environment, how a human being can live? How a human being? Suppose there is a large scale air pollution takes place, and there is a toxic substances are emitted to the atmosphere with a huge quantity by industries. What will be the consequence? The consequence will be individuals inhale the toxic substances which are in the atmosphere, and automatically they will die. What happened in the Bhopal's Ricket tragedy? The same thing happened. See, therefore, environment should be adequately protected. It should be conserved, and environmental pollution should be, as far as possible, it should be mitigated.
Yes.
Good,
One more thing, sir. During this pandemic period, one of the American person who told that I have purchased the oxygen by paying so much of dollars because of this pandemic is inside the private hospital. That is why everybody has to protect the environment.
That is the symptom of there is a large scale environmental pollution taking place across the globe. A day will come that every individual will have to take a small oxygen cylinder with him, just like a mobile. The days are not far. So therefore, we have to be very careful. Even the water also. Even with regard to water also, during the future, they'll get in the ration shop only, because without the pre-pollution water we are not getting. That is also the same. Thank you, sir. Now water bottles are being sold in the market.
Yes.
It is unimaginable for individuals, just 30-40 years ago.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, this is Dr. Muduraj. I have a question, sir.
Tell me, Muduraj.
Thank you very much, sir. Excellent presentation on human rights and environment. Really, it will be enlightened on us.
Thank you.
But I have a question, sir.
Tell me.
What is the relationship between human rights and environment? Then next question is, how you connect during COVID-19? The environmental protection and human rights will be enhanced during COVID-19.
For the first question is the link between the environment and human right.
Yes.
Human right. See, the sustainability of mankind is depending upon the sustainability of environment. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
If there is no sustainability of environment, you cannot think of the sustainability of man. Man cannot live without adequate environment.
Yes, sir.
For example, now in the COVID situation,
Yes, sir.
why we are all using the mask?
Yes, sir.
Why we are all keeping distance, social distance?
Sanitizer.
What sanitizer, using the sanitization
Yes,
and all
sir,
that?
yes, sir.
Why? What is the reason?
Yes.
Reasons are obvious. Reasons are
Yes.
obvious. I need not tell.
Yes, sir.
But if the environment is polluted to a greater extent, larger extent,
Yes, sir.
by way of emission of the toxic substances, poisonous gaseous substances,
Yes, sir.
what kind of life we are talking about? Where is the question of importance of life when the environment itself, in fact, is degrading, deteriorating,
Yes, sir.
distorting? You
Yes,
know,
sir.
very difficult. So therefore, environment and human rights, they are an integral part. They are the two faces of the same coin.
Same coin. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Sir, good afternoon, sir. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tell me.
Sir, Dr. Somsekhar CS from Davangere.
Tell me.
Sir, very good presentation, sir. Thank you.
Tell me, Somsekhar.
Sir, how did the COVID-19 protect the environment, sir?
COVID-19?
How did the COVID-19 protect the environment?
Environment.
Protect.
Now we are all living in this COVID-19. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are all living in the COVID-19, and see, once the environment is properly conserved, you don't get any kind of infectious diseases. You cannot get any kind of infectious diseases by any viruses.
Okay.
It is because of these environmental pollutions we are all getting all these problems. Understand?
Yes.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Tell me.
Sir, myself, Rashmi. Sir, I want some opinion from you.
Tell me.
Do we think that the government is failed in protection of environment when we observe the leakage of LG polymer industry, which is in Andhra Pradesh?
No. Why do we blame the government? Why can't we blame the people who are behind that running the industry or factory? Why do we blame the government? See, for everything we should not blame the government. We should blame the people who are behind it. For example, if a leakage takes place in an industry, and if the people are affected by such leakages and start dying or infected with diseases, why should we directly blame the government?
But it is the obligation and it's the duty of the Environmental Protection Board, no, sir?
It is true. It is true. Only when that obligation comes only when there is an infringement of your obligations. When you fail to fulfill your obligations. See, the state, for example, pollution control boards, before giving consent, they lay down certain guidelines. Only according to the guidelines only they have to manufacture the goods and services. They have to run the industries.
But sir, sometimes these guidelines may be followed at the initial stages, but then there may be, they may just be discarded at a later stage.
Once the discard, that has to be taken up by the state. The state has to impose penal liability.
Madam,
No, sir, what is her opinion?
Yes, sir, thank you.
They should have the inspections should be there, no, sir. What they are doing, how it is performing the same guidelines, they are following same norms or not. That has to be inspected, sir. That's what our opinion.
That is the obligation of the state, no, sir? To inspect the industry.
That obligation is already there under the legislation.
Okay.
Inspectors, industrial inspectors are appointed by the government, and there must be a periodical inspection of the industrial undertakings and various places of dangerous places in the industries. And it is the obligation of the state. It is true.
Okay.
At the same time,
Sorry for the interruption. Madam, Nagshesham Madam and Rashmi Madam,
Tell me.
it is the obligation of the government, but government, sorry, I'm saying, government sometimes taking bribery, giving permission to open the.
No. That is outside. That is outside of discussion.
Outside of our
It is
discussion,
outside
sir, we should not talk like that, sir.
No. See, it is the
What is
statute.
happening means monitoring is not there, sir. That we should monitor.
It is the statutory
But
obligation. One minute, madam.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Please hear me. It is the statutory obligation on the part of the state to inspect and to monitor every industrial process. If the industrial process leads to the destruction of environment or leads to the environmental pollution for example, in the guidelines, if there is pollution control boards, either it may be central pollution control board or state pollution control board, as the case may be, if they impose a norm that they should not discharge their industrial effluents nearby water bodies, still if they discharge the industrial effluents, then the state shall take immediate action by way of imposing huge penalty or by way of closure of the industry. It shall be the duty of the state.
Sir,
That's
but,
right,
sir,
sir.
one more thing I want to add that, sir. What is the state? State is democratic country. We are all there. We are also employees, authorities there. Then authority is not working. So it is responsibility of all of us. We are also teachers. If you want, impart your knowledge properly to the students, so you are failure on your duty. Same thing will happen to the authorities also.
Exactly,
Not
madam.
everything government.
You just tell me, we have a very effective mechanism
Yes.
given by B.S. Krishna here, Justice Bhagavati,
Yes,
that is
yes,
public interest litigation.
yes.
How many of us we are filing the public interest litigation, questioning the authority of the industries which are responsible for the leakage of gases, consequently resulting in the death of the workers?
Only
We are
few,
leaving
only
only-
few.
We are leaving only to the people like MC Mehta.
No. Every individual, we have to come forward.
Yes, that's what I told, sir. Society change should come from the society. We have to take the responsibility.
Exactly.
Sir,
Yes,
one
sir,
more
yes,
thing,
sir.
sir, why your PPT is not displayed, sir?
Sir, we are waiting for your PPT, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Just a minute.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. I
Yes,
would like to add something, sir. I'm Sharika Rai from SDM Law College. Like somebody raised a question, like what is the how COVID has impacted, or what is the connection between COVID and the environment? So here, on a positive note, I think the COVID, the lockdown which followed the COVID has a tremendous impact on environment. I think it has played a great role in restoration of the environment to a great extent. What do you think, sir?
No. See, COVID has really affected the environment. There is no doubt.
It has restored because now you find more birds coming out, more cleaner atmosphere because of the lockdown.
Ma'am, there are advantages and disadvantages with the
There
COVID.
are disadvantages also
we are
there.
telling.
Yeah. But I said this is a small positive note of COVID.
Of course, this is I would view in such a way that nature is balancing both the environmental pollution and the nature.
Sir, please slide your PPT, sir.
PPT, just a minute.
We are eagerly waiting to see your PPT.
My PPT. Are you seeing the PPT?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have addressed few important issues, environmental issues. First one is whether environment has any ethical, spiritual, and moral values. Whether human rights and environment are interrelated. Whether economic activities are devastating environment. It is certainly. Whether growth of industry, population, and urbanization causing environmental disaster, ecological imbalance. Whether enjoyment of human rights substantially depends on the protection and preservation of environment. Whether human beings should have compassion towards nature, including animals and birds. It is already provided in Article 51 of the Indian Constitution. Whether exploration and exploitation of natural resources should be done based on the principle of sustainable development, certainly it must be. Whether the existing laws at all levels are adequate in combating environmental problems resulting in violation of human rights. I think the present existing laws are adequate, but we have failed in the implementation level. Then 21st century witnessing serious problems of environment and human rights. It is certainly we are facing innumerable problems.
Yes.
The protection of life and human beings are depending upon the protection of environment and human rights. It is certainly true. Then protection of environment at international, regional, local, and also at the grassroots level are required. Role of NGOs is equally essential for the environmental protection. Unfortunately, majority of the problems coming from this environment are being taken up by the NGOs today. Enjoyment of human rights and use of natural resources must be in harmony with the nature, because every individual should not be so cruel to the nature. Natural resources must be used in such a way that there must be harmony with the nature. People should use only that much of natural resources which are really required for them, not in a greater level, that is over ambitiously. The first major global efforts of the protection of environment made at the United Nations Conference on Human Environment was held at, as I told you, Stockholm 1973. And of course, that is called as a Magna Carta of Human Rights. And the conference stressed for the protection of the natural resources like water, air, land, then fauna and flora, natural ecosystem. And of course, this is for the benefit of present as well as the future generations, as I told you, under the Sustainable Development Principle. Then deterioration and damage to the environment is a threat to the very existence of natural and healthy life. Of course, if we want to preserve healthy life, we have to preserve and protect environment. And of course, in 1992 also, more than 178 countries, in fact, which participated in the summit, Earth Summit conference in Rio de Janeiro, was also in fact focusing upon the Sustainable Development Principle. And the summit also aims to protect the planet and the ailing system and to ensure health and the protective life of human beings. Then Vienna Convention also in fact focuses upon the sustainable development. And above all, Agenda 21 of Stockholm Conference, Agenda 21, in fact, it focuses mainly upon the promotion of sustainable development. Agenda 21, the first part of Agenda 21 says that poverty should be eliminated across the globe in order to protect the environment. Because the existence of poverty anywhere is a threat to the existence of prosperity everywhere. That was the slogan we find in the International Labour Organization. Likewise, we have constitutionality of the implementation of the international agreements. For example, under Article 51, which mandates that the state shall endeavor to foster respect for international treaty and obligations. Likewise, 253, Article 253 of the Indian Constitution also empowers the Parliament to make a legislation for giving effect to the international obligations or international conventions. And there are a host number of legislations we have for the purpose of promotion of preservation, protection of environment, like Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Water Act of 1974, Forest Conservation Act of 1980, and as I told you, Environmental Protection Act 1986, the Air Act of 1981. All these legislations, in fact, they are very essential for the protection of environment. And protection of environment is very essential for the protection and restoration of human rights. As you know that these are all the causes of environmental pollution directly affecting the right to life. such as industrial activity, agricultural residues, vehicular trafficking, chemical fertilizers, using of much chemical fertilizers or huge quantum of chemical fertilizers will damage the crops and also fertility of the soil and ecosystem. Then municipal waste, biomedical waste, that means just dumping of biomedical waste on the soil or any land without adequate precautions will affect the ecology and biodiversity. And lastly, hazardous waste, medical waste and hazardous waste, they are also responsible for the pollution of environment. And of course, these are all the cases and the principles highlighted by the Supreme Court: polluter pay principle, precautionary principle, public trust theory principles, doctrine of sustainable development, and lastly, doctrine of intergeneration equity. And of course, the Stockholm Declaration, principle 1, it focuses upon this intergeneration equity. Let there must be an equality to be ensured not only for the present generation but also for the next generation also. We should keep in mind the next generation also in using the natural resources. In spite of all these efforts, there is a deterioration of the quality of environment. Why? Because the executives, as we have discussed, as the executives have failed to enforce the laws and to adopt sustainable measures to regulate and to prevent and to improve the environment. Therefore, judiciary has realized, judiciary has stepped into the shoes of executive. Today, everybody says why judiciary is unnecessarily encroaching upon the jurisdiction of the executive. Because when the executives have failed to implement the legislations for the preservation and protection of environment, what else the judiciary can do? Judiciary has to step into that, and judiciary has to dictate the executive to implement the provisions of environmental laws. Therefore, judiciary has realized the constitutional obligation to protect the environment through interpretation. So these are all the important cases: Rural Litigation Entitlement Kendra, MC Mahata case. Then we have the BS Muddappa, Bangalore Medical Trust Muddappa case. Then Lakshmi Pati versus State of Karnataka. Then we have Kamalnath versus Union of India. These are all the cases. And I have given few suggestions. What are the few suggestions? People should be oriented towards the importance of the environment and human rights, because many large number of people, they are not having any minimum knowledge about the importance of environment, minimum knowledge about the protection of human rights. Number 2, the enjoyment of human rights and environment should always go with progress of the state. So it is not that just because I have my human right, I can enjoy according to my whims and fancies. No, my enjoyment of human rights shall not affect the enjoyment of the others. My enjoyment of human rights shall not affect the environment. So therefore, enjoyment of human rights and environment should always go hand in hand for the progress of the state. So thank you so much.
Hello.
Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Chandrasekhar, principal of Siddhartha Law College, Kalburgi. Gulbarga, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, right to development and right to environment. So, for example, if we check the Kyoto Protocol, where India is not a party to that protocol, because we want development. Because you cannot start a business or emission or greenhouse effect. That's why the India is doing more. So that's why you have to stop. That's the Kyoto Protocol. They wanted to sign it. But according to me, what you are opened that poverty is a main cause for destruction of the environment. I think what's your opinion, sir? Whether India has to sign that Kyoto Protocol?
Agenda 21 is already made it clear. It is very clear that existence of poverty is a threat to threat to the environment. First poverty should be eliminated across the globe.
Yes,
If at all you want to ensure, preserve, protect the environment.
Sir,
Number one. Number two.
Yes,
Please hear me.
Yes,
Number
sir.
two.
Yeah. Yes,
There
sir.
has to be a balance between the development and economic activity.
Yes, sir.
This has been stressed and emphasized even by the Supreme Court in several cases.
Yes, sir.
See, just because you have a right to start any industry, right to start any manufacturing process, that does not mean that at the cost of the environment. So therefore, environment, protection of environment and protection of the economic activity, that is industrial activity, should go hand in hand. There must be a balance. If they become imbalanced, then the judiciary will step into that and they will declare that it is to be closed down in view of the preservation and protection of environment.
Sir, what is your opinion regarding whether India has to sign that Kyoto Protocol 1997?
It has to sign. That is my personal opinion. It has to sign.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we get your PPT, sir?
Yeah, you can get it. You can get it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The HRD will send you the PPT. No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for your participation.
Sir, anybody give me vote of thanks to sir?
Sir, thank you very much. I'll give, sir. So thank you very much, sir. You are enlightened and enriched. With regard to the human rights, how it will be connected to the environment and the right to life, which is a very important thing. And everybody has enjoyed our class very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
ಯಾವ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಾವುಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ.
ಹಾ ಸರ್ ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಸರ್ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಸರ್ ಈಗ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾ ಸರ್ ಸರ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಸಿಗ್ನೇಚರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸರ್. ಹಾ ಮೇಡಮ್ 15 minutes ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಇದೆ. 3:45 ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿ.
Okay, sir. Okay.
ಹಾ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ 3:45 ರೀಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿ. ಟೀ ಬ್ರೇಕ್. ಹಾ
ನೋಡು ಅವ್ರು ಸರ್ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡಕ ನಾ ಅಟ್ಟೆ ಬಿಡುದಿಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರ ಮತ್ತೆ SR ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕನ ಇದೊಳ ನೋಡಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅಣ್ಣ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಇನ್ನೂವರೆಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ರಿಗಾರ SR